May 5, 1957, Hexham, England. It was a peaceful Sunday until the unthinkable happened. Two girls were walking happily down the street, returning from church with a friend. 11-year-old Julia was holding the hand of 6-year-old Claire. They had no idea they were living their last moments. Suddenly, an out-of-control car appeared around the bend. The driver, Anthony Lydon, was under the influence of medication and couldn't stop in time. The sound of the impact echoed through the neighborhood. Julia and Claire Pollock died instantly. Their young lives were cut short in the blink of an eye, leaving behind devastated parents and a family drowning in grief. Their father, John Pollock, was a religious man who believed in reincarnation. Even in the depths of tragedy, he said something that shocked everyone: "My daughters will come back to me." Their mother, Florence, thought her husband had gone mad with sorrow. How could anyone believe such a thing? But John insisted, "They will be reborn into this family. I am absolutely certain." The months passed, the pain unbearable. The house was empty and silent. But then, something impossible began to unfold. Florence discovered she was pregnant, and it wasn't an ordinary pregnancy. Doctors confirmed she was expecting twins. For John, this was the first sign, the proof he had been waiting for. He smiled for the first time since the tragedy. And what happened on the day of birth would change forever the way the world understands life and death. On October 4, 1958, Florence went into labor. John waited anxiously outside the room, his heart racing. He was convinced his daughters were coming back, but nothing could have prepared him for what was about to happen. At 10 a.m., 2 identical twin girls were born, but the doctors were baffled. Identical twins are supposed to look exactly the same. These two did not. The younger one, Jennifer, was born with a birthmark on her forehead in exactly the same spot where Claire once had a scar from a childhood fall. She also carried a mark on her waist identical to one Claire had. The doctors were stunned. Identical twins with different marks? That was scientifically impossible. But for John, it was divine confirmation. The elder twin, Gillian, was born with no marks, just like Julia had been. Even their personalities reflected the sisters who had died. Jennifer was shy and cautious, just like Claire. Gillian was bold and protective, just like Julia. Florence still resisted the idea. "They're just coincidences," she told herself. But as the days passed, unsettling things began to happen. The babies cried whenever they were carried near the site of the accident. They seemed to recognize people they had never met before. Even their sleeping habits were identical to those of their deceased sisters. John carefully documented everything, every detail, every behavior. He knew he was witnessing something extraordinary. The most shocking moment came when the twins began to speak. When Jennifer and Gillian turned 2, they started talking about things they could never possibly know. "Mommy, where are our toys?" Gillian asked one day. Florence frowned. "What toys, dear?" "The toys we had before we went to heaven," Gillian replied. Another day, Jennifer pointed to a photo on the wall. "Look, Mommy, that's us," she exclaimed. It was a picture of Julia and Claire taken months before the accident. How could she know that? The twins described precise details of their past lives. They knew about toys that had been hidden away in the attic objects Florence had put there after the tragedy. "Remember when we went to school for the first time?" Gillian would ask Jennifer. "And when you hurt your forehead on that rock?" Jennifer replied, instinctively touching her birthmark. The most chilling moment came when they visited their grandparents' house. The girls ran straight into the garden and began digging under a tree. Moments later, they uncovered a doll. It was Claire's favorite doll, the one she had buried there months before she died. "How did you know it was there?" asked their grandmother, trembling. Jennifer simply replied, "I buried it." Florence could no longer deny the impossible. This was beyond any logical explanation. She began to believe her daughters had truly returned. But what happened next was even more disturbing. The twins began to show signs of trauma from the accident. Whenever they saw a car approaching, they panicked. They screamed, "The car's coming! The car's coming!" The truth was revealing itself in ways no one could ignore. When Jennifer and Gillian turned 4, John decided to conduct a definitive test. Without telling anyone who they were, he took the twins to the school where Julia and Claire had once studied. The result was chilling. As soon as they reached the school gates, Jennifer grabbed Gillian's hand and whispered, "Remember our classroom?" But they had never set foot in that school before. The twins walked confidently through the halls as if they knew every corner of the building. They stopped in front of a third-grade classroom. "That's where I used to sit," Jennifer said, pointing to a desk. "And I sat right there," Gillian added, pointing to another. Miss Henderson, who had taught Julia and Claire, turned pale. "Oh my God," she murmured. They had chosen the exact desks where Julia and Claire used to sit. But the most shocking part was yet to come. In the schoolyard, the twins encountered an elderly woman who had once worked in the cafeteria. Jennifer ran up to her, shouting, "Aunt Mary, Aunt Mary." The woman nearly fainted. Her name was Mary Thompson, and she had worked there for decades. Julia and Claire had affectionately called her Aunt Mary, but she had retired 2 years earlier, and the twins could never have known her. "How do you know my name?" Mary asked, trembling. "You always gave me extra cookies," Jennifer replied. "And you let me help pour the milk," Gillian added. Mary's eyes filled with tears. That was exactly what Julia and Claire used to do, intimate details no outsider could possibly know. John documented everything, but Florence still hesitated. "How can we be absolutely sure?" she asked. The answer came in the most devastating way. The twins began to recall fragments of the accident. Jennifer woke up screaming at night, The car is coming," Gillian comforted her. "Don't worry, little sister. We're safe now." But the ultimate test would happen when John took them back to the very street where Julia and Claire had lost their lives. May 5, 1962, exactly 5 years after the tragedy. Against Florence's wishes, John decided to take Jennifer and Gillian to the exact spot where Julia and Claire had died. He thought, if they really are my daughters, they will remember everything. The family walked together down the quiet street. At first, the girls were playful, but as they approached the fateful bend, their expressions changed. Just 50 meters from the accident site, Jennifer began to tremble. "I don't want to go there, Daddy," she whispered. "Please, let's not go." Gillian, the older, stepped into the role of protector. "It's okay, Jenny. I'm here with you." That was exactly how Julia had always protected Claire. When they reached the precise spot, both girls stopped. Jennifer pointed to the sidewalk. "This is where we were walking," Gillian added softly. "And I was holding her hand just like this." John froze. No one had ever told the twins the exact positions of their sisters' bodies, but they knew. Jennifer then pointed down the street. "The car came from that way. It was going too fast. It couldn't stop." Her voice broke. Gillian began to cry. "I tried to pull Jenny away," she sobbed, "but I couldn't. It happened too fast." Florence, unable to hold back her tears, covered her mouth. Those details were never shared outside the police and paramedics. Only Julia's final attempt to shield her younger sister had been recorded, and somehow the twins knew. "Daddy, it hurt so much." "I couldn't breathe," Jennifer whispered. John knelt and held them both tightly. "No, my daughters. You went to a better place, and now you're back home." From that day on, the girls began to reveal even deeper secrets, intimate details that not even their parents had known about Julia and Claire. After the visit to the accident site, the memories grew even stronger. Jennifer and Gillian began revealing secrets that not even John or Florence had ever known about their deceased daughters. One morning, Gillian said casually, "Mommy, do you remember when Julia hid her allowance money under the mattress?" Florence frowned. "What money, dear?" Jennifer added, "She was saving up for a birthday present. It's in a little blue box." Florence rushed to the girls' room, lifted the mattress, and found it exactly as described. A small blue box with £2.50 inside, along with a note that read, "To the most special mommy in the world." Florence burst into tears. That was a secret Julia had taken to her grave. "How do you know that?" she asked, trembling. Because I'm Julia, Gillian answered matter-of-factly. And she's Claire. The stories multiplied. They spoke of an argument Julia once had at school, a test Claire had cheated on, even dreams they had never shared with anyone. Remember when I dreamed of Grandpa? Jennifer asked one night. He was in a garden and said he'd be waiting for us there. John turned pale. Julia had told him about that exact dream 2 weeks before the accident. Even their relationship mirrored the past. Gillian always protected Jennifer, just as Julia had protected Claire. Their games, their fears, even their quarrels were identical. Sometimes I feel like I'm raising the same daughters twice, Florence confessed. It's comforting and terrifying at the same time. But the most definitive proof was yet to come. In 1963, when the twins turned 5, the case drew the attention of Dr. Ian Stevenson, a psychiatrist from the University of Virginia and one of the world's foremost experts on reincarnation. I'm going to subject them to rigorous tests, Stevenson declared. If they really are Julia and Claire, they'll pass them all. The first test was simple. Stevenson mixed the late sister's toys with similar ones. Without hesitation, Jennifer picked out Claire's favorite doll. Gillian chose Julia's favorite book. Coincidence? Stevenson muttered, writing everything down. The second test was more difficult. He showed them photos of 20 different children, including Julia and Claire. The twins immediately pointed to the right ones. That was me before, Gillian said, and that's Jenny. Stevenson was impressed but not yet convinced, so he designed the ultimate test. He took them to the house where Julia and Claire had lived as toddlers, long before the family moved to Hexham. The twins had never been there, yet as soon as they entered the garden, they ran to a corner behind a tree and shouted, "Our little house." There stood a small, forgotten dollhouse John had built years earlier. Overgrown with weeds, no one had remembered it existed. "How did you know this was here?" Stevenson asked. Jennifer replied simply, "Because we played here every day. I was the mother, and Gillian was the daughter." For the first time in his career, Dr. Stevenson was speechless. But the most emotional test was still to come. Dr. Stevenson prepared one last decisive experiment, the most rigorous of all. He brought in Mary Peterson, a neighbor who had been very close to Julia and Claire but had moved away shortly after the accident. The twins had never met her, nor had they seen any photos of her. For them, she should have been a complete stranger. When Mary entered the room, the girls were playing quietly. Suddenly, Jennifer's head shot up. "Aunt Mary, Aunt Mary!" she cried, running into the woman's arms. Mary froze, her face pale. "My God, how does she know who I am?" Moments later, Gillian approached her and asked softly, "Aunt Mary, do you still make those chocolate chip cookies we loved?" Tears streamed down Mary's cheeks. She really had baked those cookies for Julia and Claire. Jennifer continued, "Remember when you took us to the lake to see the ducklings, and I fell in the water, and you saved me?" Mary nodded in shock. Everything had happened exactly as Jennifer described. These were private memories, details only Julia, Claire, and Mary herself could possibly know. Stevenson carefully documented every word. For him, this was the most compelling evidence of reincarnation he had ever encountered. But the explanation came from the girls themselves. One afternoon, Gillian tugged at Stevenson's sleeve. "Doctor, do you want to know why we remember everything?" He leaned in. "Why?" Jennifer answered. "Because we didn't want to leave. We wanted to stay with Mommy and Daddy, so we asked the angel if we could return. He said yes, but we had to be born again." Stevenson was overwhelmed. For the first time, science was faced with evidence that defied every conventional explanation about life and death. In 1966, he published the case of the Pollock sisters in his famous book 20 Cases Suggestive of Reincarnation. The story spread worldwide, igniting debates in universities, research institutes, and newspapers across the globe. Skeptics traveled to England to investigate for themselves. Yet all reached the same conclusion. The evidence was undeniable. "It is the best documented case of reincarnation in history," Stevenson declared. There is no conventional scientific explanation that can justify these facts. The impact of the Pollock case was profound, not only on science, but above all on the family itself. For John, it was the validation of his deepest faith. "I always knew my daughters would return," he said. "Love is stronger than death." Florence, who at first resisted the idea, became one of the strongest voices for reincarnation. "I was blessed to raise the same daughters twice," she said. "Now I know that love never dies." As the twins grew older, something curious happened. Around age 7, their past life memories began to fade, just as Dr. Stevenson had predicted. "It's natural," he explained. "As children develop their own identities, the old memories slowly dissolve." Jennifer and Gillian went on to live normal lives. They studied, graduated, married, and had children of their own. Yet the bond between them remained unshakable. Even in adulthood, their personalities mirrored the sisters who had died. Jennifer was cautious and reserved, Gillian protective and strong. "Sometimes I dream I'm a different girl, in a different time," Jennifer once confided. "I wake with a deep feeling of nostalgia, as if I've lost something important." Gillian admitted the same. "I can't recall the details, but the feeling is always there, like I've lived it before." John Pollock passed away in 1993 at the age of 85. Until his final breath, he held firm. "Raising the same daughters twice was the greatest gift God ever gave me." Florence died in 2003, aged 89. In her final years, she often visited grieving families, sharing her experience and offering hope. "Death is not the end," she would say. "It is only a transition." Dr. Ian Stevenson continued his research until his death in 2007. Over the course of his career, he investigated more than 3,000 cases worldwide, but he always considered the Pollock sisters' story the most compelling of all. "This case proves that consciousness survives death," he wrote, "and that the love within a family is strong enough to transcend the barriers of life and death." Today, the Pollock case is studied at universities and research centers across the globe. It remains one of the most powerful pieces of evidence suggesting reincarnation is real. Jennifer and Gillian, now in their 60s, live quietly, granting interviews only occasionally. Their message is always the same: if our story brings hope to families who have lost loved ones, then it was worth sharing. Because in the end, this is not just a story about reincarnation. It is a story about love. Love that transcends death. Love that brings souls back. Love that never dies. So were you moved by the incredible story of the Pollock sisters? If you believe that love transcends death, leave a heart in the comments. And if you've experienced something you cannot explain, share it with us. Your story may become the next video here on Paths of the Soul. Like this video if it touched your heart, activate the bell so you won't miss any new stories, and share it with someone you love, because some stories are too powerful not to be told. Here on Paths of the Soul, every week we bring you real stories of reincarnation that prove life is much more mysterious than we imagine. Tell us in the comments, do you believe in reincarnation? Have you ever felt déjà vu you couldn't explain? Do you know someone who has lived through something similar? Subscribe now and join us on this journey through the mysteries of life, death, and love. And remember, in the path of souls, every spirit has a story to tell. What will be the next one that moves you? Until next time, may the light guide your way.